So I got heartwood pine from power poles that I milled with my chainsaw, and I ran dados on the edges, 3/4 inch wide by like 1.5 inches deep or so. And I actually, so then I used cypress, the same 3/4 board that I used on my ceiling, the tongue and groove ceiling that I had leftovers. I just ripped the tongue and groove off, and they were 3/4 inch wide. You can see it sticking out. So the foam you see sticking out, that's Gorilla Glue. So I use Gorilla Glue to joint the boards, join the boards with the dado splines, similar to what I did on my floor, only in this case I glued it with Gorilla Glue and clamped it with ratchet straps and some wedges that I drove on the sides to snug the boards up real tight. And I just finished using my jack plane. You can see it sitting there. I just finished vacuuming and cleaning up. The whole garage was full of shavings, and I ran my jack plane over the top and bottom faces, and then I used a couple of metal card scrapers to clean up some of the edges. So right there you can see where the Gorilla Glue emerged, squeezed through and emerged through the joints. So I just ran my jack plane over those and my card scraper, and then a little bit of sandpaper in some cases. So that's the bottom door, and that's the top door, and they're oversized currently. I'll be trimming about 1 inch all the way around to make it perfectly square on both of them. So I'll be cutting off all these ugly ends of the boards where the glue is sticking out and stuff. But you notice I ran my jack plane over everything, but I left some of these tooth marks from the chainsaw that are kind of reminiscent of axe marks to kind of give it that hand-hewed look. For the most part, it's smooth, but it's got some little chippy marks, gouge marks that look like axe marks. You can kind of see some of them on that board. So the plan is, over there you see those stack of 2x6s, like 2x5.5, something like that. So I'll be making a brace on the top, a brace on the bottom, and then a diagonal Z support that goes across on both doors. So that'll be, first I'll be rough cutting, trimming the final profile of the door, and then I'll be putting on the braces. Pretty heavy. It's a heartwood pine, and it's just about like lighter pine. It's really high pitch because it's the butt ends of the logs, and over the years the sap dropped down into the bottom of the logs, so you can see the heartwood. This is just a darker piece, but it's a heartwood as well. Same with that center one. You can see the heart of it, even though it doesn't look as light as these others, just a darker color grain. The ledges and braces, some people refer to that as a Z brace, but those are, the top two are ledges, and then the middle piece is a brace, are totally attached. So I got them all notched, and the effective way to really do them is to notch them in, because the hinges are on this side of the door, up there and here. So the weight of the door, gravity wants to pull the door down, so it's pushing, this brace is resisting and carrying the outer edge weight of the door to the corner, pressing into that V-notch. So some people just lay the board on top of the other without notching it, and that's really not really doing much of anything. So the way to really make it effective is to have it notched in like that. So A lot of measuring, stuff like that, but it wasn't too awful challenging, really. And so I've got these timber fasteners that function like 1/2-inch diameter, the strength of 1/2-inch diameter lag bolts, 3-inch long. They're like 2 7/8 long, almost 3 inches. So I got one in each board, basically, for the top and bottom, and then one in the middle, and then a 3-inch screw, a smaller wood screw, 3-inch screw here. I just didn't do them because you were getting kind of closer to the edge of the board anyways. The top and bottoms are what's carrying the weight anyways. This is, the brace is locked in to the two joints anyways. So I made it purposely. When I cut these are actually cypress from a 4x4 that I ripped in half to make it a true 2x4, true dimensionally 2x4. So it's a tad bit higher than this 2x5.5. It's like so it's a 1.5 by 5.5 is basically what this is. So it's a little taller. So, and I knew that. So I'm going to run my hand plane over it to get it kind of down to the same level, and it will also serve to clean this board up a little bit and leave some track marks, which will, show the hand plane marks. So same on this one. So this is the top door, and that's the bottom door. And you can see on the top door, there's the open face rabbet that faces out to the exterior with a weather strip, insulated weather strip. And then here is the bottom door with the reverse facing rabbet under here that will marry to that open face rabbet over there with the weather strip. Hinge will be on this side, and the hinge is on that side. So it turned out really good. It's a big, beefy, heavy door, double door. And I forgot to mention, the brace angle is identical, so that it will, when they're stacked on top, the brace will be parallel to one another. So I made absolutely sure that these angles, the angle of this brace and this brace, are identical. So one thing that might, I don't know if it's an illusion, whatever you call it, you notice this Z brace extends, because of the angle I selected, ends only like 2.5 inches from the edge of either ledge. Whereas because this is a shorter door, it's the same angle, but it hits a little deeper, more like 3.5 inches from the edge. But the two will be parallel, so they will look correct. You won't have one angle and then another, some other goofy angle that throws your eye off. So should look really good. That's why some people do an X. And if you look at them, they are different angles, but because it's an X, it kind of takes your eye away from the fact that they're hitting in different spots on the ledge. But the X doesn't really do much for strength. It's really this part of the X that matters. So, just to show you the fasteners, I got these timber fasteners, pan head, flat head, 2 7/8 inch long timber fasteners that have the holding strength of 1/2 inch lag screws. Are these big dowels, 1, 2, 3 on each ledge, one in the middle of the brace, and you can see them, and I plugged them with cypress plugs that I made. And then all the little holes between them are definitely overkill. I use these Spax brand construction screws, outdoor treated construction screws. that are in these 1/2-inch countersink holes. This was a blemish on the board, and I plugged that. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 in each brace, so there's just absolutely going to be no way for the door to sag. Pretty much overkill. And 3-inch screw on either end of the brace as well, so on both doors. So you can see I've got all these plugs that are glued in. I'm going to give them till tomorrow to dry, and then I just take my hand plane and just scrape over the top of them just to kind of finish off the board, and it removes all the pencil marks from my layouts and stuff like that. So tomorrow I'll just hit it with the hand plane, and pretty much it'll be done and ready for finish. So there you go. There's the Z-brace door with several coats of tung oil, including a outer tung oil finish that's got UV inhibitors and stuff in it. So I'll just show you real quick. Here's my level. Perfectly level. And you just have to take my word for it, but it's level up and down as well. So that worked out good. There's the hinges. These wide gap hinges, and you can see they go right to the edge of the proud casing, right up against the trim. So when you open it, here I'm going to open it, it goes beyond parallel, you can see. It does end up hitting the trim right there. That's where it stops, but it's fully open. So there's the interior with no Z-brace. And you can take a look. Here's look how tight my mortises, where I traced my mortises hinge gaps there when I did my dry fit. Down here too. Pretty tight fit in these corners. So that worked out really good. It's a slow process getting the door perfectly shimmed and fitted in there before I drilled the holes. Kelly had to kind of help me hold the door and shim it and everything. It was a real slow, tedious process to get it positioned before I drilled all the holes and put the screws in. But there's see the little gap, and I'll have a sweep that I got for the bottom. But I had to shave it just a little bit because when it closed, I never really saw this on videos, but the corner was hitting the casing a little bit, so I had to shave about a 1/16 of an inch off. And then when it closes, you can see the gap widens a little because it is recessed into see that corner almost wanted to hit and did hit, and then I trimmed it. So then next, this is hard to see on video, there's closed, and now I have to do between my interior casing trim and the door will be the jam that with the weather seal that the door will strike against, that I have to make all the way around, attach all the way around. So that still has to be done. So nice and tight on this side. Okay. And then that's fully closed right there where the hinges actually touch. This bottom one, right there, it touches all the way. And the gap is uniform, nice and uniform and level on the bottom too. So pretty happy. I am currently honestly not happy with the color of the door because it's yellow, but over time it will turn a orange amber color. That's what the tung oil does. This is kind of the first stage of the color, and as it cures it turns more orange, so it'll get better. Not particularly thrilled with the color right now, but it'll get better. It'll darken and turn more orange with time. So So there's the open face rabbet that the other door that has a closed face rabbet will strike against the top part of the Dutch door. So that I will be working on next. But there it is in action. Swings real smooth. And I just got to put some finish on this edge because I did have to shave a little bit of that to get it to fit in the jamb. Even though it dry fit in, the door is so thick that geometry of the way it closes this corner wanted to hit. So I had to shave a little bit off, unfortunately. But it was fine. So you can see I left enough there that I recessed back the brace of the Z. So when I did have to trim it, if I did, I'd have some to work with. So I anticipated that. So that worked out fine. And so that's the interior with no brace. Real smooth hinges. 2.5 inch stainless steel, 2.5 inch trumpet head screws. Instead of the ones that came with it, I got these really long, deep, penetrating screws. So 8 total, top and bottom, including in the door. So it's stout, and then the hinges are a pretty heavy gauge metal too, so they're pretty stout. But boy, is the door heavy. It's a heavy door. Just showing you the shallow mortises that I cut for the hinges. This is the top part of the Dutch door, the top section. I think these are really nice and tight. See that? Perfect fit. Real tight fit, see? Here's the mortise on the other one. Same thing. Real good tight fit. Bam, right there. So it turned out good. Now I'm going to mount it and then mark the hinges on the casing on the door and put mortise pockets on the casing of the door, and then I can mount it permanently. All right, here's the final door. Primitive Z-brace ledge and brace door is totally installed. Just got it on the hinges, had just a tiny bit of trimming to do on the top, and there you have it. Really happy with it. Looks great. Everything's perfectly level. Quite an ordeal hanging that. We had a big plastic table out here with a bunch of wood stacked up on it, and then I had to shim it and tap a bunch of shims to get it perfectly, get the hinges perfectly lined up with the mortise pockets that they fit into on the casing. And pretty tedious, but it was perfectly installed. I got it just right. So there it is, and I'll show it to you in action. Here's try to hold it back. Here's the door opening in unison, and I left this undone because I wasn't sure if I was going to have to do much trimming, so I got to put a little bit of tongue oil on that. I'll be doing that in a minute. I actually need to put one last coat of exterior tongue oil like I did the bottom. Once it was hung, I put a final coat on. So, but there it is. There's the rabbet. See that? And there'll be a little weather strip in there that they strike to make it weather tight, airtight. All right, so there's the hinges, and here is what it looks like when it's open. So that's what it looks like on the interior. and I'll be installing a big latch, handle latch that keeps the two doors together from the inside that can separate. And here's what the door, here's the open face rabbet. When it's closed, I still have to make my casing jam that the door strikes with the weather seal still. That won't take long. But there's what it looks like when it's open. Looks great. You can see I just had a little bit that was hitting up here, but I took my scraper, so I'm going to touch up paint that, but I just kind of, it was just a little bit in the very back corner. Unfortunately, the top is angled down, so once I just took about a 1-inch strip off, then it slid right in perfectly, nice tight fit. So that's about all I had. I had just a little bit I had to do on this edge because the casing on this side slants in just a tiny little bit, so I just had, so that's why I didn't bother finishing this edge yet until it was hung. So I'll close it back up. There it is, closed. So it is yellow, admittedly, but I anticipate it will turn a pumpkin orange, amber orange color over time, and it'll match a lot better. So it's going to do nothing but get darker, I anticipate. So a little bit light for my taste right now, but knowing that the tung oil reacts with the pine and darkens with age, the more dark it gets, the better it's going to look over time. So that's it. What an ordeal. It sure is heavy. I bet you it's 250 pounds of weight on that the combined. And that's why I got lag bolts in the casing, so it doesn't rip the casing off the side of the log jam, you know. So, but I've had the bottom door on a while, and it hasn't leaned even a millimeter, so I know it's really strong. It's supporting the door just fine. So looks good with that half log header above it. And I also have to install a little weather strip sweep on the bottom that I already bought, and then it's a metal sweep with a metal frame with a rubber sweep, and I'll veneer over that with a piece of thin wood to hide the metal. So it should turn out pretty good too. It's like a 3/8 inch gap, if that. Really thin gap on the bottom, so it should be pretty good. Work out really good. I got the doorway jamb installed today. I'll open it up and show you. See it up in there. So it's got the tung oil on it. It's got the little groove. This one's on the side of it, and this one's on the top for the vinyl weather seal strip that's not in there yet because it's still drying with the tung oil. I'll show you on the inside. So it's the same color as the windows. It's just yellow pine with tung oil to give a kind of a contrasted color to the more brown trim that's on the interior. So it turned out good. Still gotta plug the holes with dowels, and then I'll put another coat of tung oil on. I just hadn't put those in yet. I did screws on the side that the latch where the door strikes, and I just did finish nails on the side or the back of the door, because that's not really hitting any pressure. That's just creating a seal. It's not really slamming it like the top. You'll see the top that's got the screw holes. Those are 1.5 inch construction screws, so I'll plug those just like I did on my windows. So that's it. So there's the threshold, jamb, and I'll put the weather seal vinyl weather seal strip with the spline that slides into the grooves. Got a saw kerf all the way around the edge of each one. There's a one back here that you can't really see. It turned out good though. Here's the finished door. All I have left is to make a latch, a doorknob slide bolt latch that will be mounted right above this brace. And I'll show you the jamb, the weather sealed jamb on the inside that I finished. First off, here's the weather seal insulated rubber 3M adhesive strip that I put on the out-facing rabbet. So at some point maybe I'll try to find a brown color. Maybe it's a gray color, but it functions as a really good seal when you close the top Dutch door. Makes a tight touch fit. So that's the weather strip for the rabbet. See that, how it hits? And then on the inside you can see the vinyl rubber weather strip with the spline that I inserted into the saw kerf edge all the way around. See that? And I got my plugs, dowel plugs, inserted in my screw holes on the top. There's the weather seal on the top, all the way to this edge. See how they flex? And because of the geometry of the door, this one's just out from the edge a little, because when the door closes, the front corner has to clear the edge, and then it actually goes back a little bit, so the gap is a little wider on this side of the door, being that it's such a thick door. The corner wants to hit, so I had to hit here on the jamb, and so I had to trim that so the corner would just miss, and then by the time it closes, there's a little bit of a wider gap than everywhere else on the door on the edge side, on the outer edge side. So I ran the saw kerf in the middle of this board instead of on the outer edge like normal. So you kind of see it a little bit more. You don't really notice it though. So I'll show you what I mean. I'll close the bottom door only. And if you look and see, because it's such a wide door going inside of the jamb, I'll try to get the angle just right. You see how it wants, this corner wants to hit the casing. So I got it. So I had to trim the door, but then watch what happens. As you close, then it levels out and creates a little bit of a wider gap. But see, this corner barely misses. And then it strikes very well, you know, just off the edge of is where it strikes the weather seal. See? So, I mean, it doesn't look like really wide, but it is wider than other side, which when the hinges close, it gets much closer, see? Not a lot, but it's a bit wider. So I just had to accommodate that on the weather strip and kind of bring the weather strip out just a little bit. So I ran my saw kerf right in the middle of that 3/4 inch wide trim. It's about 3/4 inch wide. So there's the threshold interior portion with the dowel plugs, and I did the same thing on the side. Dowel plugs, hardwood, contrasting color. And then on the top I did those rounded dome shaped ones because that's just to do something a little different on the top, because that's what I did on the threshold, on the exterior portion of the threshold. I just went with that. So, and I didn't do any on this side because I think I explained that before, the back of the door isn't really slamming against that, it's just touching the weather seal, so I just did finish nails to hold that on, so it just gave it a little bit of a cleaner look.